Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and I am all in on this free agent running back.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with the Wide Love Substack. We have not spent our time looking up who the free agent running backs are, but instead have looked up 18 different ways to crash Luke Braun's wedding.
Hi, I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Please get off of my wedding's website.
Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. I just stumbled upon Luke Braun's IMDb account, another website we have some questions about.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party.
It's your home for Luke Braun's wedding website discussion, IMDb website discussion, and some Minnesota Vikings talk as well. We're glad you've joined us on a brand new week, Super Bowl week, and you're watching here on Locked On Sports Minnesota, or perhaps listening on the Locked On Vikings audio feed. Please subscribe to both. Get us on video, get us on audio, also on the SiriusXM feed. Amazon Fire, Roku, lots of ways to watch and listen. It's more than just football. It's the basketball party on Wednesdays, Ron Johnson show on Tuesdays, and the roundtable with Carol Evans, Reggie Wilson, and Julia Daniels on Fridays. A lot to get to on today's mostly Viking-centric show, but we are brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets. If your first bet of $5 or more wins, visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Lots to get to today. We have gone over a different quarterback in the draft for like the last 6 shows. Today, we are going to hone in on where we are planting our flag for April's draft. This is a big decision because, of course, we can't change our minds once we dial in on one of these prospects. Running back, free agents. I've got one I love. See if you guys love him too. Arif Hassan with his Senior Bowl report and Super Bowl nerdy stats of the day. But this is where we begin, guys. And we'll get to Luke Braun's IMDb, don't you worry.
Good. Excellent.
But we have covered the following 6 quarterbacks: Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and J.J. McCarthy. Now that we've kind of covered the gamut, varying opinions on all of them, what do we want? Who do we want? Who do we want to pursue if we are kwesi-adofo-mensah and the Minnesota Vikings? Let's go to Luke Inman. Kick us off. Which guy are you locked in on?
Boy, if I'm being totally honest, when you look at everything they got to address this year and where they're picking, and then you look at where these quarterbacks are being mocked right now, and none of the options right now, anyways, today make me feel that great about any of the options before it. And a lot's going to change from now to the draft. I've still got more games to watch on all these guys. You know, KOC and Kwesi could start to fall in love with one guy over the next 2 months. We don't know. But as of right now, you know, the big 3 are almost definitely going to go 1, 2, 3. Giving up a king's ransom to get up to 3 for Daniels or 2 for Maye, it just makes it so much harder to keep building your roster up through the draft the next few years. I just don't love it unless you're absolutely in love with the guy. I like Penix a little bit more than I like Nix. Maybe with all the medicals, there's a chance you could trade back up into round 1, roll with him. I think, despite all the flaws that we've already gone over, I think KOC would love some of his tools. The fact that he's willing to be aggressive downfield, take some shots, give his guys a chance. That's something KOC can definitely work with. McCarthy, he's a huge wild card just because we don't know enough about him as a passer and what it's all going to look like in the NFL, only because he wasn't asked to do a lot of those things in that Michigan offense. But he's another guy maybe in round 2, or just, you know, knowing the premium teams pay for a quarterback, maybe you got to move up into round 1 as well. And then maybe you sign a bridge like Tannehill or Flacco or someone. I'm just flinging out some names, but I'm not sold on any of the big 3 for the price that you're going to have to pay. And I'm not sold on anyone else at 11 in that second tier. So even though it's going to be super fluid the next 11 weeks, as of today, if you're asking me, I think my ideal scenario is you trade back from 11, pick up some extra ammo. You get a guy like Byron Murphy Quinyon Mitchell, Jared Verse, somebody like that. Now you've got some defensive help you can
God, that
bank
would
on.
rule so hard.
And then some ammo to move back up for Penix or JJ. That's my plan A. And again, the biggest reason why is because it doesn't mortgage your future the next 3 years. You're not gambling on a move that history has shown to have at best 25 to 33% hit rate when it comes to first round quarterbacks. So now you've got a chance. If this guy doesn't pan out, you're not tied to the hip for the next 4 years, even if it doesn't work out again, like a Bryce Young in Carolina. Trade back, then trade back up. Don't mortgage the future, though, and put all your eggs in that basket.
Yeah, I like where you're coming from, and I'll jump in because now that Luke Inman has said it and I'm agreeing with him, it makes me sound smart. Michael Penix Jr. is my guy. I know he's turning 24, and that bothers some people. I know he had a million injuries at Indiana, and that bothers some people. But he's been healthy for 2 years in a row with Washington. He's 24, which maybe in another draft, that age is like a bigger problem, but almost all of these guys are 24. There's a couple that are, 3-year dudes, and then there's like 6-year guys. And he's not that different. And of the 24-year-olds, I love him. I'd rather gamble on the guy who is electrifying, who is fearless, who can move around a little, who you don't have to pay a king's ransom to trade up into the top 3, 4. And to be honest, I look back at his Indiana stuff. I kind of think he was the same guy at Indiana. I think he was really good. But again, injuries, and in a sport where supporting cast actually matters quite a bit in college football, he didn't have that. But the way he makes back shoulder throws, tight window throws, deep throws, it's so easy to see him working really well with Justin Jefferson right out of the gate. So that's my guy, Michael Penix Jr. And as Luke alluded, there's different ways to go about it. You can trade back, then trade up. I tend to think that second tier is going to start creeping higher into the first round, where you might not be able to trade back from 11. But I'm on the Michael Penix Jr. train. Luke Braun, your thoughts?
Sam, we almost had you back from the darkness. It's just another nice old injured and inaccurate quarterback that we can obsess over for 2 months.
Let's bring back Donovan, man.
Donovan McNabb.
I'm ready for it.
I think my guy in this one is gonna be Jayden Daniels. I think he's the guy that I like the most. He is, to me, the one that feels the most pro ready, the most Sunday-ish of the quarterbacks, in the way that he works his feet, and the way that he has a certain polish and calmness that you don't see from even like Drake Maye and Caleb Williams, who are definitely going getting projected higher because of some of the schoolyard stuff that they do. But from the down to down, like handling the more common and mundane tasks of being a quarterback, those guys have some flaws that I'm like genuinely pretty worried about. And like, my thing about these guys going 1, 2, 3, I don't think they're good enough to go 1, 2, 3. Like, I don't think that's justified. That might happen because teams have to, but like, I don't know if that's like a good idea. But so I would say my happiest situation is one where it's not 1, 2, 3, and Jayden Daniels falls to 4 or 5, and those teams are willing to trade down, and they trade down with the Vikings, and the Vikings go up and get him. I still like that the most. I don't hate the idea of, all right, let's grab Chop Robinson or something insane. He probably won't be there at 11, but let's or Jared Verse, Luke said, something like that at 11, and then you trade up back into the bottom of the first round, or even wait until the second. You maybe try one of these other guys. I'm sort of halfway through doing Jase McCarthy. I like him more than I thought I was going to like him. But I don't like Penix at all. I kind of feel like I don't really get what, like, I kind of feel like Washington just threw up a whole, like that offense didn't run through him. It ran through Rome. And a lot of guys can throw up some one-on-one jump balls. There were some really nice seeds in that tape, but in terms of like consistency, which accuracy is a consistency game, it's about the frequency of lowlights, not the quality of highlights. And by those measures, Penix was arguably the worst of this bunch. So I really wouldn't like Penix, but I could kind of see Kevin O'Connell liking Penix for the reasons Luke said,
Mhm.
because he likes somebody that's going to be able, that's just going to push it and be aggressive all the time, whether or not it's proper to be aggressive. He would share that that trait with Kevin O'Connell. So I could see him liking it, but I don't think I would.
Yeah, he did have three great wideouts too, with Polk, McMillan, and obviously Rome probably go top 15 at the latest, if not even top 10.
He's like,
just to play devil's advocate there for a second,
go let him make plays. And like
everybody,
when you have those guys, like that's the correct move. Like you don't need to do anything more. Like that's great. Good job.
Right.
You can go win 13 games, make to the championship. But there's too many misses. I think that's my big thing. He misses too many throws, too many more than everybody else.
You talking about Penix?
Yeah.
I would abstractly like Penix a lot. My problem is that when you take a look at all of the negatives from all of the quarterbacks and you try to figure out kind of what's fixable and what's not, I think Penix has fewer negatives than a lot of these quarterbacks, but they're just less fixable, or they're much harder to fix, right? You can't fix injury history. It's really difficult to fix that kind of footwork and throwing motion, just kind of the way that that's organized. And so for me, even though Penix in theory has this really high ceiling, ceilings are about, kind of the maximum that you can untap. And I just don't know what else is there to untap. And so to me, the likelihood of negative plays is a big problem for me. I don't like J.J. McCarthy. I ended up doing a big watch of McCarthy after seeing Roman Wilson go off at the Senior Bowl and being like, hey, man, no one's talked about this guy. I want to know why. Is he not getting open at Michigan? Is it just because he's going up against, whoever at the Senior Bowl? And I watch it, and I like Roman Wilson a lot. I like A.J. Barner a lot. I like the other guy, the other Michigan receiver who went off at the Shrine Bowl a lot. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, look, even in college, passing is much more efficient than running the ball, and they would much, much rather run the ball. And to me, that is significant. But also, McCarthy is making dozens of small mistakes that become big mistakes in the NFL. Throwing to the wrong shoulder, throwing half a second late, ducking his eyes under pressure, relying too much on his athleticism. I don't like it. And then he throws himself into contact as a much leaner guy. I don't want to say smaller. He's like 6'3", 6'4", but as a much leaner guy that just kind of makes me worry. Like, he's got better running vision than a lot of these guys. He's got better running vision than Jayden Daniels, but he does like to throw himself into contact. It worries me. I also like Jayden Daniels the most in terms of price to acquisition cost, right? Like, if the Vikings could just have Caleb Williams, I'd prefer that. But I think that in terms of the capacity for the Vikings to acquire a quarterback, I think Jayden Daniels, to me, is the best one. It's the footwork that Luke mentioned is a component to that, because Daniels kind of knows what he needs to be doing in order to get to his spot and get to his target. But also, I just think that his feel for where space is opening up, his ability to understand kind of what improvisation requires of him. And maybe that's one issue that I have with McCarthy, is that he might be an improviser, but he doesn't really understand what the improvisation is for, if that makes sense. I like that about Daniels, that he seems to have a good sense of how the field is developing, which is the thing that separates Patrick Mahomes from a lot of other quarterbacks, right? Is this intense field awareness. This is not a Jayden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes comparison, but rather an argument that one high-level trait can get you a lot in the game. And I think that is what is appealing to me. I really dislike Bo Nix. I dislike Bo Nix a lot after watching. I was going to say,
is anybody going to bring up Bo Nix? Okay.
After watching him at the Senior Bowl be awful there, and mind you, being awful at the Senior Bowl is not like, just positive or anything like that. Kyle Lauletta won MVP over Josh Allen at the Senior Bowl. Like, these things happen.
Christian Ponder won the MVP.
Right. These things happen.
Come on.
Right. But it did ask me to, I went back and I watched it. I'm like, hey, Troy Franklin is kind of good, even though he doesn't really know how to get into space against zone coverage. What is Bo Nix doing? And it wasn't the offense just wasn't asking him to do very much. I really disliked what I saw. So from there, I'm kind of left with like Jayden Daniels in the first, maybe like trade down and stuff for trade down and then trade up for Michael Penix, but these second round quarterbacks have just become less interesting to me over time.
Yeah, so here's the deal. For the fan base and media apparatus of the Vikings has been so unbelievably insane about like never be mediocre. You must be either a top 5 team in a Super Bowl contender or nothing. I don't think if we've advocated for that this hard, I don't think we get to be like trade down and take Penix, because that to me feels like a commitment to being value pilled and just okay.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna be like
your
that,
average wins instead of trying to figure out the best way to win a Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like we've crossed a line at some point where we're not allowed to go there anymore. Like if that's not that to me is not a Super Bowl winning. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Only if you're one of the complainers. If you haven't been complaining about that approach, you're clean. You're free.
Yeah, so I'm good, but I don't like him. So
your belief is that to show commitment, you've got to give up assets. You've got to take
a guy you love instead of a guy you can talk yourself into.
Shows you care enough. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's crazy that people are concerned about giving up assets. Like I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. It's a
for quarterback. It's the rules are different. Yeah,
yeah. Like
you can't. There is no wrong way to hit on a quarterback. Yeah, there's no price that was like, oh, this quarterback's so great, we just paid too much. Like, nah, man. If you paid 3 first-round picks and that dude hits, you are not gonna care.
Yeah, I mean, like people will talk about like, oh, they didn't surround Justin Fields with talent. First of all, Justin Fields was picked at like 9th overall. It's not like they sacrificed like heaven and earth to grab him. Like, yeah, they're out of first, but
an extra first. That was it. That's pretty.
Yeah, but you know they had the picks, they just didn't hit. Yeah, the other part is that you have to hit. Also, Justin Fields is not good. He's not good.
Yeah,
like, they didn't surround Joe Burrow with talent until they did.
Speaking of quarterbacks getting the boot after their 3rd year.
Yeah, they didn't.
I don't know. I think Burrow had too many good receivers.
Josh Allen entered the least talented NFL team I have ever seen in my life. It is working out fine. Like it's fine. I don't care.
If you just said you watched Michigan.
Arif, I know you don't like JJ. One of the things that a lot of people are going to start to drum up here as these next 2 months go by is that, well, he's the youngest, though. He just turned 21, whereas a lot of these guys are old. Jaden's 23. Penix is going to be 24. Nick's going to be 24. You're getting 3 extra years here. And yeah, it's not perfect, but I'm just curious if that's enough for you to say and maybe justify a few of those faults along the way.
I think that's a pretty fair argument. I think there's like 2 things here, right? I think one is that age is not a knockout con, right? It is a threshold modifier. So the older you are, the better I need to see you play for me to be comfortable. Jayden Daniels, to me, crosses that bar. Bo Nix absolutely does not. Michael Penix is kind of closer to not doing that. Again, you know, he has a lot of stuff that is just hard to fix, right? McCarthy, I think that there's a pretty good argument given how relatively young he is, that you could say that, right? Like Joe Burrow needed to be polished when he came out because of how old he was, and he was. That's great. I just don't see it, if that makes sense, right? Like just in terms of how quick his eyes are, how he responds to pressure. To me, I feel like these are things that typically, that's not always true, but typically don't materialize as you develop with age. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good argument.
I want to get to another very important position, running back, and free agent targets within that. I also want to hear if Arif Hassan found any more future Vikings at the Senior Bowl, and our new series, Resign or Let Him Walk. We focus on Dalton Risner today. That's all coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. Today's show brought to you by DoorDash, and if there's any week of the year where you need to be locked in on DoorDash, Super Bowl week, you want to have your party, all the fixins. Maybe you don't want to do all the cooking, though. You want to outsource that to a restaurant. You want to order from DoorDash and get your favorite apps, desserts, entrees, drinks straight to your door. That's why DoorDash is so great, so convenient, so fast that you can have everything ready by kickoff on Super Bowl Sunday. And the deal right now, 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Once more, 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app, enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Have the best Super Bowl party possible. Get food, get groceries, apps, desserts, drinks to your door with DoorDash Again, one more time, 50% off up to a $10 value. Spend $15 or more on your first order. You download the DoorDash app, enter code LOCK23. We're also presented today by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and plenty more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride. You'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. You're burning rubber, not cash, with eBay Motors. All the parts you need, the prices you want, easy to turn your car into the MVP. Keep that car rolling with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, we last talked to Arif Hassan on Thursday. Arif, how long were you at the Senior Bowl?
I did not attend the game. I flew out right before then. I was able to watch a little bit of the game. Also, a bunch of players that did well in practice didn't play in the game, so I feel justified in my approach there.
So there's holdouts now from the Senior Bowl game as well.
Yeah, that's not like you're acting as if that's new. That's not really that new, honestly.
National team needs to shell out. This is
yeah, right. Yeah, it's cheap. In fact, the defensive line holdouts did get bad enough that Brendan Fisk had to switch from, I believe it was national to American or vice versa. He'd been like practicing with one side all week, and then right before the game, he switched to the other side. Did really well, by the way, when he switched. It was pretty fantastic. Mind you, he'd been going up against those offensive linemen in practice, so I guess maybe it's a little bit different. But no, I mean, I very much enjoyed the experience. I very much came away with much the same takes that I put together for you here on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ton has changed. I talked to a couple of people about, some of the guys I didn't like and see if, maybe, and they liked them, and see if maybe we could come to kind of an agreement on why that was. But I did not change my mind. Maybe I'm stubborn. But players like Brendan Rice, a lot of people have come out saying that they liked him a lot at the Senior Bowl. And I really thought that he did a very, very poor job at the Senior Bowl in a lot of respects. And I can detail why. But also Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle that's been getting kind of first round-ish buzz. You take a look at some big boards. He ranks around like 35. He sneaks into some mocks and stuff like that in the first round. I thought that he did poorly. Some other people think that he did well. And I just find that kind of fascinating because there are players that we universally agree did well, like Ladd McConkey, Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson at receiver. Everybody seems to agree that those players did well. And then there are players that like mostly did well, and everyone kind of agrees. Like Carter Bradley, the quarterback from South Alabama, did a really good job, right? Most people seem to agree that he did fairly well. And then there are people that people just completely disagree on, like the two that I just mentioned, right? I find it. I just find it like that kind of evaluation and practice watching kind of interesting. And I wonder, did we watch the same reps? Did we watch the same amount of reps? I went back and watched some of the reps on film, and did that produce a different result? I don't know, but that's just kind of one of the takeaways. Is like, hey man, we could look at the same thing. We could see one receiver being super physical at the catch point, and one guy like me saying, hey, he didn't need to be physical. He should have gotten separation. Another guy saying, hey, he climbed up and he got the ball. That's great. We need that. Like, I don't know. I think that's a more interesting takeaway than which players did well.
Legette and Dez Walker from North Carolina disappointed me a little bit, to be honest.
Also controversial. Yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you. I know they both had a lot of hype going in as these bigger bodied physical specimens between the weigh-in and how they looked on the field. For me, neither lived up to the hype, but I'm curious about what you saw from either of those guys or what you heard from, a lot of your peers while you were there as well.
I almost universally did not like Tez Walker's Senior Bowl. I thought that he did a very poor job. When he was up against physical coverage, he got pushed around. His speed was very evident, but it wasn't useful, right? Like he did not find a way to continuously get open deep downfield. And he has a lot of, I think, stiffness. Like he doesn't get in and out of breaks on lateral breaks very often. I think that he does a pretty poor job on curl routes, which is like if you're a go route guy, your changeup is typically a curl route or a comeback or something along those lines. Like that is kind of that receiver prototype. That's what DK Metcalf does like really well, right? I didn't see that from Tez Walker, his ability to dial down and win those curls very often. When he was up against, man coverage in particular, I thought that he got pushed around. So I didn't really like it all 3 days. He did have some big plays, which is nice, but I think that in one-on-ones, you kind of have to dial down what your threshold for an impressive number of big plays is, right? Xavier Legette, I thought his first day was quite bad. I thought his second day had some really good stuff. And depending on kind of what you take a look at, you can kind of change your mind on that. Overall, for me, I thought he didn't do very well. But that one is one where I'm a lot more like, I see where you're coming from, right? With Brendan Rice, I didn't really see where people were coming from. With Xavier Legette, I saw where people were coming from when they were like, hey, I really liked what I saw. Because that second day was actually quite good in a lot of respects. I think in
he
total,
bounced back.
I
It sounded
love
like
it. But yeah.
Which day two guy is your go get your guy for the receivers? Like you mentioned, Ricky Pearsall, McConkey, Javon Baker from UCF, Luke McCaffrey, Roman Wilson balled out. If you had to pick one, like who's going to be the Tank Dell as far as improving their stock at the Senior Bowl and then having a good rookie season, which obviously a lot depends on where they go, their quarterback and all that. But like, which one do you feel the best about? Because there's a lot of these day two wide receivers now.
I think in terms of, this might be the guy I feel best about, and the guy that pushed his stock up the most might be Roman Wilson.
Sure.
McConkey did well, but he was already getting high round 2, maybe even late round 1 talk. Pearsall was getting kind of round 2 talk. Roman Wilson, I looked at big boards around the league. Roman Wilson was not in almost anybody's top 50. And part of it was because they didn't throw the ball at Michigan, right? And so he didn't get a ton of targets. And so they're like games where they run the ball like 10 times in a row. And it's like, well, what's Roman Wilson doing? Almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
AJ Barner's got some blocking reps going in, but Roman Wilson is just hanging out in no man's land,
Yeah.
Or a lot of the offense, will include like some RPO elements, and you're like, I don't really know. I'm going to give the receiver that much credit on that one, that kind of thing. And so when they ask him to just run an NFL offense with NFL routes at an NFL frequency, he got insane separation, incredible separation, and stuff that when you watch like a Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs or an Adam Thielen, they do like subtle things that allow them to get open, right? Like, for example, on an in-breaking route, they'll not just push up field, but they'll lean out and physically push up against the defensive back and then explode out of that route without extending their arm to draw offensive pass interference, right? Like Brendan Rice, for example, when he explodes out and he gets separation, a lot of times he's pushing everything. Like the whole arm is out. He's pushing mid-route, and that's going to get you an OPI flag. But Roman Wilson is chicken winging it, and he gets enormous separation. And then he can continue accelerating through the catch. And he was really natural at the catch point. And if he's a guy that's consistently outside of the top 50 and he's playing like the best receiver at the Senior Bowl, I think that he pushes himself into round 2 territory. I don't think that he's going to be a round 1 guy. I think that a lot of evaluators will feel that he's too small, 187 pounds or something along those lines. But I do think that he has the ability, like you mentioned, Tank Dell has the ability to play on the outside because of how good his releases are in his ability to avoid contact in those situations. You still want a bigger guy to be your X, but I think that he could play as a flanker or a slot and occasionally as an X if you're clever about it.
Yeah, going into the week, you're totally right. I mean, guys like that we just talked about, Tez Walker, Legette, all those guys were higher than Roman Wilson on the large majority of big boards and rankings and mock drafts for sure. So, yeah, it sounded like he killed it last week.
Is Legette just like the next Hakeem Butler? Just like a big body who's
not even that big. Wasn't he 6'1", 6'1.5"?
Yeah. So
like 6'4".
One of the things about Legette going in is that he was supposed to be 6'3". He's listed at 6'3". A lot of people were like, "Oh my god, a 6'3" receiver that moves like that. That's really great." Measures in at 6'1" and with like tiny hands. And so that was like part of it. But he does not play like Hakeem Butler. That actually is probably more like Brendan Rice. Not to like dump on a guy the whole time, but like. If we're talking about like the most physical, get up and get the ball, doesn't get a ton of separation guy, that's probably Rice. Legette is not bad. He's fast. He's got some agility. I think that he's got much more movement capability than Tez Walker. Tez Walker in a straight line, faster. Legette's overall movement package, better, I think, based off of what I saw. And he's got like a lot more agility. So I wouldn't describe him like a Hakeem Butler just because he can move a little bit better. I'm actually struggling for a comp on this one because he is pretty physical at the catch point, but he does have a lot more agility than a bunch of guys who seem like they're playing like big body receivers. I might have to get back to you on that one, just because his catch rate makes it really difficult to find a good comp. His playing style makes it difficult to find a good comp, because he's got the movement skills of a guy that you think would be like a route runner type, like a Ricky Pearsall type. But the play style is somebody who's like a DeAndre Hopkins type. And it's like, I hope you get a good receiver coach in the NFL, because you're going to have to play to your strengths.
Just hearing that, I haven't watched it. Cortland Sutton.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh.
Just hearing
like
that description, that sounds like
Cortland Sutton catches a lot better than this dude, but I like that a lot.
Yeah, I could see that. How about like Devondre Sweat? Too high for a nose at what are we?
I think it's I think Devondre Sweat is probably going to go somewhere in the second round, and to me, that's a little bit high for a nose. He's fun. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as a pass rusher, he's interesting, right? Because he's winning a lot as a pass rusher, but when I take a look at nose tackles that win as pass rushers, like mid-career Linval Joseph or Dexter Lawrence, right? I'm taking a look at, they have like, or Kenny Clark is maybe even the best example. They've got like a lot of agility, and they've got 2 or 3 pass rush moves. Not a ton, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not, like Aaron Donald or anything like that. They don't have a ton of moves, but they've got like a bull, and they've got a swim, and they've got a bull jerk, and they can counter off of that. And Kenny Clark has a spin move, which is very frustrating, right? But they've got a fair amount of agility for their size. Devondre Sweat has a fair amount of agility for his size, and he doesn't use it as a pass rusher. As a pass rusher, he was only bull rushing people. Now, mind you, it was working, so, I can't be like upset about it, but I would have liked to have seen more, right? I would have liked to have seen a successful swim move. I would have liked to have
just
seen...
show me you got another trick in the bag. Just
right, yeah. And it's like, look, man, there's a lot of small centers in the league now. Blame McVay or whoever you want for that. And your ability to kind of forklift them is fun, but that's not like what's going to happen in the NFL. Some giant guard is going to help that tiny center out, and you're going to have to deal with that. So I don't know about Devondre Sweat, but
Devondre Sweat caught a touchdown last year.
That rules. I love him. I just don't know.
He's 300. What did he weigh in at? Because he's 362 on PFF.
He did not weigh in.
He did not weigh in.
He refused to weigh in.
He didn't want to do it.
Okay, so
what does that tell you?
You want to hear
number?
some sourced reporting from Arif Hassan?
Yes.
According to my sources, Devondre Sweat is definitely over 360 pounds and is likely, the last time he weighed in at his training facility, 378 pounds.
Wow. And again, at what, 6'4", though? 6'4"?
Yeah.
Not to try to justify it, but like 6'1", 370 is a lot different than 6'4".
Yeah, 6'1", yeah. 6'1", yeah. But yeah, there's that's about the size of it. I'm sure by the time the combine rolls around, he'll be below 360. That's going to be kind of an imperative for him.
More to get to, including my favorite free agent Vikings running back target next on the Minnesota Football Party, which is brought to you by FanDuel today. And this is the big week. This is Super Bowl week. This is America's #1 sportsbook, offering you dozens, nay, hundreds of ways to wager on the Super Bowl. You got to have the best seat on the couch, the best food, use DoorDash, and you've got America's #1 sportsbook app in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So there's a lot to like about Super Bowl Sunday. FanDuel can be a big part of it, and there's so many ways to wager. I'm looking at just this is just one tab of bets. Team to record the most sacks, alternate total sack total, fumble lost in the first half, fumble lost in the second half, tackles and assists, competition between Charvarius Ward and Trent McDuffie. Like, this is how specific and detailed the betting options are at FanDuel. So join the fun. New customers join today, get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So take care of that before Sunday. Find a juicy money line, win that bet, get $200 in bonus bets, and you can sprinkle that around on the Super Bowl and have a great time. FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make the Super Bowl and every moment in the Super Bowl more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are all in agreement. The Vikings running game struggled last year. The Vikings probably need to upgrade at that position. And I've got the exact man who is going to provide that upgrade. His initials are AE. He comes from the Los Angeles Chargers. His name is Austin Ekeler.
And he kind of washed?
See,
Kinda
this is exactly the response I was hoping you would have. Exactly.
I'm genuinely asking. I didn't watch
Wow,
it.
I know.
Set him up. Good job, Luke.
This is the consensus opinion. Austin Ekeler had a down-ish year, 3.5 yards per carry, but he was part of an awful running game. Joshua Kelly was terrible. Isaiah Spiller was terrible. Their run blocking grade on PFF was the league's worst. And yet, Austin Eckler's rushing success rate was still better, like at 47%, was still better than two of his previous alleged good seasons. So while the raw numbers don't reflect a great season for Ekeler, and it wasn't. But I think that he was in a terrible scheme. Nobody could run the ball, and he still is an elite threat in the passing game. The cost looks like, estimated by PFF, about 2 years, $6.75 million per year. He's only 28. I am all in on a bounce back Austin Ekeler campaign.
Sam, I have a question.
What do you think it cost?
Per PFF, 2 years, 6.75 per year.
Why are you trusting PFF run blocking grades, but not Austin Eckler's PFF grade? He ranks 57th of 61 running backs. I had to
so Sam's wrong. Sam doesn't know what he's talking about. Give me another option.
Running backs are bad. I don't like those options. No, I mean, there's like a couple, I think in terms of low cost options, I think Saivon Ahmed from the Dolphins would be kind of fun. I don't know that he has like a ton of vision, but I think that, he does make up for the lack of vision with speed, which is kind of unlike Ken Nwangu, whose vision is so catastrophic that he cannot make up for it with his speed. So I like there's, it's a sliding scale.
It's exactly the Cordero Patterson problem. Vision is so much easier when you get like 30 yards to figure everything out.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a bunch of interesting names here. I mean, there's Amir Abdullah, there's Jerick McKinnon, there's Dalvin Cook. Have you heard any of these guys? This is crazy. I think Latavius Murray is available.
Jerick McKinnon coming back would rock so hard.
Actually, it would. It would.
McKinnon,
actually, no,
I'm
I'm for it. He's like 32. I don't care.
He'll cost nothing. Like whatever. I feel like all these running backs, except for like specifically Saquon Barkley, will cost like nothing. Like the market is just completely.
Think Josh Jacobs will cost nothing?
How about
It
Derrick
feels
Henry?
like buying stock in 1931. Like
I love that. I love that.
Okay, well, just in terms of like potential value, I think Devin Singletary would be interesting.
I like Singletary for the value
market.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not going to be $2.5 million again, but I think that he's a good back that, is relatively young. Again, there's no like young second contract running back. Let's be clear, but relatively speaking, among third contract running backs, Devin Singletary at 27, I think would be pretty good. But I mean, this is a tough group, right? You've got a lot of guys that are fast that don't have vision. People like DeAndre Swift, Matt Breida, Saivon Ahmed. And then you've got people that are like, hey, you avoid negative plays. Austin Ekeler avoids negative plays. He just doesn't get you anything for it. But that was true of Alexander Madison. That was like the deal, right? That's what we were sold.
They already have that.
All right. So like, okay. Maybe Damian Harris. I don't know. He's a big back with balance. I always tend to fall in love with those.
So
guys.
nobody's really moving the needle that much for
These
you.
are
Got
the
names. For
These are the
sure.
least inspiring suggestions I've ever heard.
But would you rather
it's a
just
running back.
throw
What do you want?
Yeah, would you rather just throw a dart up on day 3, or would you rather go?
I need a serious guy there.
I'm fine with a 4th round running back. I'm fine with 2.
Yeah, I was gonna, even later. I mean, yeah,
I could do that.
Okay,
but
Rafe,
11 million for Saquon. Let's get real. Let's go.
I'm kind of Luke. You're joking. I'm kind of on both ends of the spectrum.
I think
I'm
Devin
in the middle.
Singletary, I think
Let's go.
Nowhere in the middle. Excited about Devin Singletary.
This is the most electrifying player you can get for $11 million, like for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just you just want a fun guy. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm on either end of the spectrum. I'm not in the middle where, all right, let's try to nickel and dime for a J.K. Dobbins or again, I like Singletary, bang for the buck. We'll see a little bit more spending.
Hey, how much do you think Tony Pollard will go for now that he can't be a primary back and that's been confirmed?
That's a very. These guys are not going to get a lot of money, man.
That actually might be a.
None of them
deal.
are. Nobody's going to shell out
That could
a lot
be
of
a
money
really
for
good
any
deal.
of these guys.
What is the Spielberger number? I just copy off of Spielberger because I suck at projecting contracts.
On who?
Let's find out.
Pollard,
Just
Tony Pollard.
Pollard,
Yeah, and Pollard.
3 years, $8 million per year. That's a lot.
I don't think he'll get that.
Is it?
$8
That
million
sounds
per
like
year.
Josh
for 3?
Oliver money.
That is Josh Oliver. Money.
Yeah, but you got to weight it for
Oh my
positional
God.
value.
Money.
Josh Oliver's not even a starter.
The tight end too, man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think we have weighted that for position.
Dude, if I'm spending 8 on Pollard, just go get Barkley.
Like this, like how cheap do these guys need to get before they
Right.
become like value, or
like,
can
well,
we just not pay them a cent?
Right.
They must be on a
just
rookie
named off
deal.
a bunch of people that I thought you might have to pay a fair amount, and I think would be that. I still think Devin Singletary is great value. Tony Pollard at like 8 is like pushing it, but that's fine. I'm fine. I don't want
also, what was
and
the
I
deal
would
with him
need
last
to see
year,
the
though?
Josh Jacobs number.
Was
He just kind of didn't
Pollard
answer the
good
bell.
last
It
year?
kind of felt like it just as a change of pace back. It was very electrifying, and it was very cool. And it was like him and being the lightning to Zeke's thunder.
Yep.
And then when you got to be the guy getting 25
Wasn't
carries, it's a different ballgame. Like
Wasn't it?
it's attrition, more than it is being able to come in fresh
Yeah,
and
well,
run
he's
against a
gonna
whole
be
bunch of guys that
splitting
are
with Ty
tired.
Chandler, isn't he? Like, it's fine.
Say again?
He's going to be splitting with Ty Chandler, isn't he? It's fine.
Thunder and lightning, baby.
Lightning and lightning.
Lightning and
Lightning and lightning.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so again, I'm still hung up on Ekeler. That's just the hill I'm going to die on, I guess. And it seems like I am dying. I'm not thriving. The Vikings run blocking scheme in their own right, which Ekeler could not overcome, a bad one in LA. It's not good. And one of the pieces of that was Dalton Risner, who was a free agent, who was exactly as we thought. He's good at pass blocking, not as good at run blocking. In today's 4-minute drill, we will either advocate to keep him or let him walk. Let's do it.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
Dalton Risner, I think he's 28. He's a free agent. We're going to go through some of these notable free agents in the coming shows. Let's start with Luke Braun. Let him walk, or what was the game?
Keep him or let
Keep
him
him or
walk?
let him walk.
Is that
Not very catchy.
we're nailing it?
FMK?
Well,
All Dalton Risner?
The run blocking Dalton Risner, the pass blocking Dalton Risner, in the locker room. The locker
guy.
room. Dalton Risner. Well, I know which one's the biggest party. I'm good with Risner. I think continuity on O-line is pretty valuable. I think the 2023 season was like major proof positive of that, because they returned a very suspect group that like way outperformed their 2022 resume. And then they broke that up in the middle of the season and had a bunch of communication issues between the left guard and the center. I would hope by year 2 that would be a little better. But that created a lot of run blocking, a lot of issues with combo blocks there, and a few issues in pass pro and stuff, but they were pretty good in pass pro on the whole. I'm perfectly happy with Dalton Risner coming back for another year. Looking at other free agents, I don't know. There's not a lot of names that I like recognize, which is probably more of a me problem than it is a problem with like these people. But I think continuity is cool. I'm good with it. But you need someone at left guard. So if it's not Risner, it's going to be someone else. And I feel not that passionate about it.
If it's not going to be a
Either way.
Risner, it's going to be someone else. It's fucking stunning commentary.
I think they might go with Sands left guard. They might just
well, like
not
I feel
have
like they're not going to draft somebody, I guess is what I feel like it has to be a free
Yeah.
agent, right?
Oh,
I would
maybe.
agree.
This is an incredible
Blake-
offensive line draft.
Blake Brandel could be the one backfill option that you have. He seems to be like versatile enough that and trustworthy enough that they would consider him. Maybe not given to him, maybe in more of a competition. But
Well, how much
Reef,
do you think Risner's gonna cost? Just curious. Does
I
anybody
don't-
have the
that's a
Spielberger
great-
numbers
That's a great
on that?
question.
Because you're right, Sam. I mean, I would be happy. I would love for him to come back, but there's a big difference between paying a left guard 3 or 4 or even $5 million versus like $8 or $9 million. So I'm just curious. I have no idea the ballpark.
PFF
of what we're talking
projects
about.
$8 million a year, 3-year contract.
Millie.
Would you rather have Pollard or Risner? What do you say?
Boy. Oh man.
Risner easily,
Yeah.
but
A little bit more spendy than I thought, though.
I'm not. I mean, these guys cost more than running backs do. That's just what happens. I wasn't overwhelmed by Reisner, I think, but I think that Luke's right that there's a level of continuity that you have to account for. Showing up midway through the season and performing like that in a scheme that you're unfamiliar with is somewhat actually impressive. I mean, he didn't play like well, but he also wasn't a catastrophe, which I think is nice. I'd argue that he's a pretty poor fit for what the Vikings do based off of his athletic ability, what they asked him to do when he was blocking, how he executed on those blocks and stuff like that. And so if they moved on from him, I would totally understand, and that's fine from a fit perspective. But from a pure talent perspective, he's fine. He is actually worth like $8 million a year. If they brought him back at that number, I wouldn't bat an eye. I expect them to move on, though, just because of the scheme fit concerns. I think that that's fair, too. I think that his issues as a pulling guard, his issues as a second-level blocker really restricted what the Vikings could do as a run-blocking unit. Now, on balance, they were a very good run-blocking unit, but you want to maximize. And I think that they'll probably attempt to find a way to get a more athletic guy in there. I do think the draft is an option. If you draft a corner round 1, you could draft one of these. Dane Brugler's most recent mock draft has 11 offensive linemen go in the first round.
Dude,
if that doesn't happen, you're going to have a first round quality guy in the second.
I was going to ask you about that because if Vikings truly go BPA, which, some teams say they do, but they actually don't, BPA for the positions we need, there's a great chance in the first 2 picks, right? The first 2 rounds, there is, if you're going BPA, a great offensive lineman staring them in the face. Are they really going to go BPA and draft one?
Doing that in the first round would be wild. That would be very funny.
Insane.
But yeah, it's an option, right? If they
Penix is sitting there.
Well, if they went pure BPA, it's kind of the result of that kind of approach. Which
it'd be like taking a wide receiver over Will Levis.
Yeah, sure, dude. I think Will Levis's second round valuation already included the fact that he was a quarterback. So I'm just gonna leave that one there. But
I'm going to be honest. I'm not thinking that hard at all. I'm just saying stuff mostly to annoy you.
Succeeded from the get-go. I think that if you pick near the top of the second round, you could grab one of these offensive linemen that you could play at guard because a lot of these tackles that people like are like 300 plus pounds, right?
Right.
And so you're probably not going to get a Tyler Guyton or J.C. Latham to fall, but you could get like a Fuaga or any of like the BYU tackle could fall, right? Like a lot of these guys could fall, and a lot of these guys are projected to play guard as well.
Graham Barton from Duke. A lot of people like his versatility.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of them.
That's all on the table.
Do we have a beat on whether Ezra Cleveland was just like an 8-game rental for the Jaguars? Are they going to sign him back, or can we just like super pull off the coup here?
I don't know how he looked those 8 games, but their O-line is not good at all. I know they're trying to give Trevor Lawrence a little bit more help. So I would guess they would bring him back, even if he wasn't a Pro Bowler, even if he wasn't stellar. They just need bodies over there. But I have no idea what he looked like.
I don't know if this is meaningful, but the PFF projection for his contract is $1.5 million more per year than Reisner's. So I don't know if that
feels fair.
Yeah,
I think he was about that much better.
He also played very poorly for Jacksonville. Played much better for the Vikings. Again, you show up midway through the season. I feel like that's the reason I'm not really out on Reisner, is because Reisner's transition midway through the
season, give him a camp.
It was significantly better than Cleveland's.
We're over time, and we'll kick Super Bowl nerdy stats to Thursday. We'll also come up with our Super Bowl bets. Luke Inman has won a bet on our dime for the Super Bowl. We'll figure that out and maybe figure out a lucrative group bet that we can all get rich on. I think we got to have at least one. We need at least one parlay.
Like a plus 20,000 nonsense.
I want one that has a potential win of $500,000. Like that has to be.
Pick a score. We need a score, but it needs to be like 34 to 46 or something like that.
Like
an exact box. Yeah.
Oh, we should pick a scoreagami.
Okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out for Thursday. That's coming up. We will craft a get rich quick bet that I will place in Iowa on FanDuel. That's coming up on Thursday on the Minnesota Football Party. Watch us on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Listen to us, the Locked On Vikings audio feed. For Luke Arif, I'm Sam. Thanks for watching. See you in a few days.